All right, everybody. If you can see this, you could probably guess that something is about to happen. And if you're tuned in here live on Facebook, or even if you're just watching later on the YouTube channel or the Facebook archives, you probably knew what was going to happen if you tuned in to this, the Malcolm Tent Facebook page. You knew that we were going to be having part 2 of the epic Malcolm Tent shoot interview with Rob and Scott of Wide Awake. And you might have also guessed, well, why are we going to do that? Besides the fact that they have awesome stories to tell and a cool history behind them and a bright future ahead of them, of course. But you know me, people. You know me very well. There's always an ulterior motive of some sort. And we do have a bit of an ulterior motive here today on the Malcolm Tent shoot interview. All you people out there, if you know Wide Awake and you're a record collector, you probably do recognize this record. This is The End by Wide Awake. Why am I waving it around in front of the camera? Because if you really know your stuff, if you look on the back of this record, you'll see there's something different. You'll see that this is not, I repeat, not the standard version on Mondo Glippy Records. No, 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 no. This one says TPOS. This one says it is a limited numbered edition of 30 copies with a number on it, no less. A number. What is it and why is it special? I'll tell you why, in case you don't remember from the last shoot interview I did with these dudes. I ended up with some original vintage empty sleeves of Wide Awake The End. And I'm the type of dude who is very efficient and very, very conscious of always getting use out of the materials on hand. So I asked all the various permissions, got the various permissions, and created, since I had 30 empty sleeves, 30 one-of-a-kind, hand-cut, individually made, lathed records. And I made 30, and I stuck them in the 30 sleeves and numbered them, and that's it. Once they're gone, they're gone. So I don't even know if at the moment I'm speaking this, I even have any of these records left, because hopefully all you record collectors out there were on duty when we did the last shoot interview, and I was flogging these things and talking about how, you know, you go on to Discogs and or eBay to get your Wide Awake The End hand-lathed edition. If you were on the money, then I ain't got no more to buy. But if for some reason demand was a little bit soft, I still got some. We'll be posting in the comments exactly what the situation is. But that's the thing. We were spurred on to action by the very existence of this thing and the fact that I want to sell some. And it's like, dude, what better way to do that than to scratch my own itch for interest in history and music and Connecticut than to talk to two of the very culprits, one of whom is pictured on the back of this record, Rob and Scott of Wide Awake. Welcome aboard, gentlemen.
Hello, Malcolm.
Don't be shy, guys. The technology will let it happen. You can be seen, you can be heard.
All right.
Seriously, glad to have you guys here. I don't want to get too much into, recapping. Anybody can watch on my YouTube channel the archived version of our previous interview. But in a nutshell, we talked about Wide Awake from the very beginning up to and including your very first demo. We talked about the bands that you guys ran with and the Connecticut scene and straight edge and all that. All that good history has been covered. So where we're at right now is that Wide Awake has their first demo out. And I do believe, Rob, that you actually have a copy of the demo itself that you can show the people.
I do. I found this the other day. This is the cassette that I managed to save. I think John went out and bought all these Fuji tapes, and I remember folding the inserts, like photocopying, folding them, and we would just truck them around to wherever we were and try to sell them. Sold them at the high school, sold them everywhere we could. And I was glad that I found this in one of the drawers the other probably the last few months.
Right on. Now, do you have any idea whatsoever how many of those you guys might have made?
I have no idea. John, again, like purchased all the bulk tapes. I'm, 100, maybe more, something like that.
Yeah, because I remember those Fuji blanks. Those were not quite. They were a little bit better than the ones that you would buy in a pack, 3 for $1.
Okay.
So it's not like you can say, well, we bought 30 packs, which means 90. You had to buy them individually, which could mean anything.
He may have consulted you on which ones to get. I'm not sure. So, but this is what we got.
Yeah, well, the one piece of advice I did give him, and I'll bet you that those inserts were made at the print shop, the Print Shack that used to be on Federal Road in Brookfield.
You're probably right.
That name will come up in a little bit in our narrative. Yeah, can you show the people the insert and everything that's in it? Because I think it's
absolutely
classic example of Connecticut hardcore demo art.
I'm just reading this now, and there's some things I didn't even know. For example, it says cover art by Ted Nelson, which I did know, but it says N.J. Crockett.
Oh boy.
Didn't know that at all.
The collaborative effort.
Yeah, so we have page, this is like the front side of the insert, photos, etc. And then the back side has the lyrics and some more graphics to it. And you're right, Malcolm, with the amount of printing, there's a lot of ink on here. It's double-sided. It had to have been done somewhere that, probably professionally.
Yeah, because people have to remember there was no such thing as desktop publishing in 1987.
There was not an option to do it yourself. There was not. So really interesting. And the folding, the way it had to be folded was so specific to fit into that case. I was probably scolded more than once or twice just trying to figure out how to learn how to make it work. But now,
can I
after
interrupt
years of being in its case, it's very conveniently situated in here.
Folded to form. What were you going to say there, Scott?
Oh, I was just going to say, I wanted to interrupt with this adorable moment here. I know you like cats, Malcolm. This little cat just jumped up to say hello, but she's very shy, so she's probably going to go away.
I see she's had enough. Goodbye.
Goodbye, cat. I think she may have been in the last one we did. She was sleeping on the couch behind me, but yeah.
Right, you're distracting everybody when you tried to talk. They're like, oh, who's that in the background?
All right, Rob, no more silly interruptions.
Oh, you say no more silly interruptions. I don't think that's going to be the case.
Yeah,
So,
I'm a second beer.
And so the interesting part, obviously, on this demo, I believe it was Rob Mitchell playing drums. Is that right, Scott, or no?
No, that's me, man.
So, okay, so Robbie had just left.
Yeah.
How long were you in the band before we recorded this demo?
So it would have been me. It would have been the end of my freshman year in high school, scrambling to learn some of the songs like in the month of June. And did this say when we recorded it? Like, does there a date on it? Like, but it was at the Anthrax, I think we were recording.
You're right. Here it clearly says Scott on drums, but there is still, they put a picture of Rob in the photo collage, which is what I saw, which was what made me think that.
Yeah. Because
So
I think John,
I forget the timing.
Yeah, McLaughlin was like, well, I mean, like, we gotta, like, in all fairness to Robbie or whatever, throw a picture of him in there or whatever. He was in, for the early incarnation or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Cool beans. And so that was 1987. Yes.
Yeah. It says recorded at the Anthrax on November 25th.
Oh.
1987.
So there was a little bit of time there. Yeah.
Was that like the day after Thanksgiving? I don't know.
Probably. So that's interesting. So you guys were already, like, you've probably been around for about a year, at least at that point.
I would say at least, because like Scott, I was not the original bass player in the band either. Our friend John Sheehan was the bass player. And I just hung out, and I was essentially a roadie, even though I didn't really do anything. I just hung out with them. And John his family moved to Chicago and he had to leave. And so I think everyone just looked around the room, and I was just the next person there, and I didn't know how to play. John taught me how to play, and it worked out. But that was, I would say, at least 6 months, if not more, before we recorded this demo. So I had time to get used to it. My first show was at Images in Brewster.
Right. The
So-
famous teen disco over in Brewster.
So John played that Chatham Oak show, that famous Chatham Oak show that was our first show. John played that. And the shows, after that. But sometime, I say 6, maybe 8 months, I'm not exactly sure, before this demo was recorded, he had moved and I jumped in.
They brought in a entirely new rhythm section.
Yeah, right.
That's right. We sure did.
As does happen sometimes.
Yeah.
So, okay, you've got to the point where you got your first demo out. I remember we sold tons of those things at Trash American Style. That was like everybody was waiting for the Wide Awake demo. So what happened next in terms of like gigging out and playing out and thinking about your next move as a band? How'd you guys proceed from there? Nobody dares answer the question. I'm going to throw it to you, Scott, since you're sitting there drinking a beer.
Yes, it nailed to the X, more like nailed to the rum keg. I'm trying to reach for my copy of that Anthrax book that Chris Daly wrote.
Go for it. We'll put up with you while you reach.
No, I could go grab it in a second or two, but just let me think, because things got really busy. That was a very fun time, obviously, 87, 88. We were playing all these shows with random bands at the Anthrax, not just the straight edge bands, but, like we talked about, like, Zombie Squad and Uppercut, Breakdown, all, some really fun bills. And I think that really all encompassed that whole, like, for me, like the summer of 87 into leading up to making the demo tape, and then going into, the winter of, of 88. There was a lot going on. I mean, but again, some of the people out there have got a better idea of the timeline and stuff, but like the Project X, obviously they came out before us on Schism, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember I'd have to like confirm it, but I think we played a show with Project X, or I mean, when those two bands played at the Anthrax, it was absolutely crazy. That was really good times, fun times for sure.
Yeah, pure pandemonium. I remember it. Anthrax is always completely packed out and just people going nuts. And I remember I went to one show. It was actually the Wide Awake record release party, and you guys had just gotten the 7-inch, and I bought, I believe, 100 from the band directly before the show. And Tom was in we met out behind the club, and Tom had, not only the records, but he opened up the trunk of his car, and there was this giant cooler full of iced Gatorade. And he was like, check this out. And I was like, that's impressive.
Like those glass bottles.
Yeah, totally, glass bottles. It was just indicative of like how intense it could be, because it was straight edge. There's going to be a lot of energy expended, and you guys needed a cooler full of Gatorade. Through the night.
Yeah, I know that stuff was definitely like liquid gold. That the Gatorade was great.
It was better than the little plastic juggies that they used to sell at the Anthrax bar.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
The White Rock sodas. They were ahead of the curve though, because they actually sold it was like a White Rock seltzer. And like now seltzer's all the rage, and you go into and everybody drinks it and loves it in the can. I remember they had that and for sale or whatever, that little Anthrax refrigerator there.
Yeah. And, I remember Jolt colas being another huge.
Yeah. Everybody loved.
Which probably explains a lot. Do they make Jolt anymore?
I think it's still around. I see it at least it's in internet form. I see people posting pictures of it, but I don't really see it too much in the soda cooler, but I think it is around still.
I never had the nerve to try one, but apparently you young straight edge kids were fiendish for it.
Yeah, for sure. But I was more, I like the Gatorade better for sure.
Right on.
It was a little too much sugar, a little too much intensity.
Yeah. Well, that kind of, I guess that leads up to the 7-inch itself, which was a watershed event in the history of the band. So who wants to give us a little bit of background on the recording and the making of the 7-inch?
Rob, what do you remember? I'll put you on the spot.
Sure. I remember John and Tom probably kind of worked out whatever the deal was with Purcell. You know, Scott and I being the rhythm section, you know, last to know, right? And but I feel like whatever the deal was worked out. I do remember us going down. We were super excited to record at Don Fury, and we went down there and started the process. I think we did it in 2 days, if I'm not mistaken, Scott. And like a lot of friends came down. Like somebody shared this really great picture from that time.
Oh yeah.
Us, I think we were like walking to the studio, but there's like 20 of us in the street. It looks like
that one
right?
always comes up like on my timeline or whatever.
I'll have to send it to you, Malcolm. I'll find it. But it's a great photo. Like Craig Russo and all these friends are just walking with us to the studio.
Burn is like on the hard left of the photo there.
Yeah, it was just a great photo. Just kind of captured that moment. We were just so excited, right? And we're so happy to be there and learning the recording process, which, and again, Don Fury, I think he only had 8 tracks, right? But it's still all new to us, right?
Yeah.
And kind of just figuring out how to do that. And they would double up. They would take I think they would take like a track and like double it up to get it a little thicker, a little sound. That sound he created was pretty impressive. If that's just 8 tracks, you know, as a really full wall of sound type thing going on. So I really enjoyed those days recording it. I don't remember how long it was from when we finished recording it till when we got to hear it. You know, again, this is before the internet, before instant access to everything and anything digital, right? Everything was tapes. So I forget the time it was before we got to hear it, and then the time before we actually got to see the record, like it came out. So I was hoping you might remember that, Scott, a little better.
Yeah.
But I do remember just how special that time felt. It wasn't lost on me, right? It was definitely like, this is a really cool moment. We're surrounded by friends. We're doing cool stuff.
Well, I got a question for you, Rob. I was just there for day one because of my overprotective parents. I believe my dad drove into New York City and picked me up. Did you guys like stay overnight anywhere to do like the second day of recording? Do you remember?
No, we didn't stay overnight. We just went back down. And I think
Okay.
I think I went for 2 days, and I think John and Tom went again for a third day for overdubs and maybe just patching up, you know, cleaning up John's guitars. He may have like looked at the bass lines and cleaned them up a little or something, but they went for a third day.
Yeah. So the one thing I do remember about that whole time, and it's not a great memory for me, but like I came into the band, I had all my chops, I was playing great, and then somehow like down the line between like, you know, like I started like not being able to like play those one beats. I was having really a lot of problems with like I'm left-handed drummer, so I play the bass drum with my left foot, and I couldn't do the like I was like was able to do when I started the band, but then I like kind of like lost formation on that. So I remember I was kind of nervous going into the studio to do that. There was even talk about maybe like Tom Kennedy having to step in and do some of the drum lines because he also played drums as well. But you know, somehow we made it through that whole process. But I think it was more like nerves and mental stuff, you know, than a physical thing. But it sure was a pain in the ass for me. Yeah. And also, I see. Looks like Rob might be taking a little break for a second, but we can double back and talk after the recording. I found Chris Daly's excellent book, Everybody's Seen, and at one point or another, I'd highlighted the shows we did play at the Anthrax, so we could talk about some of the bands we played.
Yeah,
'Cause
please do.
I just did a quick look at that, and there's some real cool stuff in there. And but again, that also brings up the point that me personally, like, I only played a handful of shows with Wide Awake. Like, we didn't have that aggressive of like a show schedule. I mean, it could be very well less than 10 shows, maybe more, I don't know. But you know, I played with other bands, like I played with Toby and Cornerstone in the 90s, and we were playing like 2 shows a weekend all summer. So, you know, we probably played like, you know, anywhere between 20 and 30 shows, maybe more. But with the Wide Awake thing, it wasn't as stringent.
Interesting. Very interesting. Now, I wanted to mention, you guys talked about how you recorded the record at Don Fury's studio. I mean, Don Fury was a really, really important part of that whole scene, because he recorded just about everybody. It's like, if you look at a record of hardcore, New York City hardcore record, or in a lot of other genres from that time period, you're going to see the name Don Fury on there somewhere.
Did you see that advertisement he made?
No.
Maybe we could find it and you could drop it into the slide, but there was an ad that ran or whatever. It showed all the different bands, you know, like it was kind of like enticing new bands to come and record with them. And it's insanity. It's like, you know, obviously Project X, Judge, Wide Awake. I'm sure Youth of Today was there. Into Another. There was all these bands on Quicksand, obviously. Yeah, there was just a million bands. Like his pedigree was impeccable.
Yeah. And so that must have been a way different experience from recording the demo, because if I recall correctly, the demo was recorded at the Anthrax, but you guys kind of set it up as a live show and just simply rolled tape, yeah?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I don't remember exactly, but we were definitely on the stage, and I think you're right. I think, and maybe Tom went and did the vocals as a separate thing. I know we all came in and did the shout, you know, the background shout along vocals in that band room there. Does that sound right? I feel like we were in that little backstage room there.
We were.
Do you think, does that sound right, Rob? We played the whole thing live though, or at least instrumental?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was kind of overdub some vocals and backup vocals and stuff like that.
And who was the engineer? I know we're backtracking a little bit, but who was the engineer on that demo?
It had to be Jeff, right?
Yep.
Or
yeah,
I think
Jeff. Yeah.
Jeff R.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. Because kind of like Don Fury was to New York, Jeff R was to Connecticut. He's the guy who recorded everybody.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
And a really sweet guy, man. Really, really missed. Really, really good dude.
Yeah.
And to get back to the matter at hand, we're going to talk about the 7-inch right now. This is where collectors go wild. I, of course, being the collector that I am, I got mine.
I need the one with Sammy on the cover. If anybody wants to sell me theirs or whatever, I'll give you some, not good money, but I'll give you some money for it.
We'll get to that in a minute. Now, this is a real artifact for me. This is the very, very, very first version of the very first pressing of the Wide Awake 7-inch.
Wow.
Not only does it have Mindy Bellis's handwriting on the sleeve. She was the first employee we ever had.
She worked there. She was my classmate.
Really?
At Brookfield High. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mindy, I forgot that she worked there. I totally forgot.
She was the first, and that's her handwriting. And you can always tell, and I remember this very clearly because these were definitely printed at the print shack on Federal Road in Brookfield.
Wow.
Using a 2-color press. And the first 100 copies that came off the press had a light blue X.
That looks light to me, yeah.
Yes, as opposed to all the others from the first and second pressing that had a very dark blue X.
That looks
like
you can
look
see
at that.
And for a long time, or at least for a little while, there's a lot of confusion because, you know, record collecting being the sport of everybody at the time, the word had sort of gotten out that there were pressings on light blue vinyl of the Wide Awake 7-inch.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to say, no, it wasn't that. It was just that the blue ink hadn't gone through the press all the way. And so the first 100 X's were lighter than usual. So saved that one. And pressing aficionados and difference spotters will note that the first pressing had a white label on the A side and a white label on the B side. And that's your first pressing.
What
Second,
was that? That's 1,000 in the first pressing, Malcolm?
that's the number I always heard.
Yeah.
And he's drinking one of those Gatorades, right?
Probably. And if,
As
depending,
I recall, he's drinking
The-
something.
if the internet research team out there can actually do some kind of reverse photo lookup and see what he's drinking, that might be one of those Gatorades.
See, back in the day, kids, those Gatorade bottles were made of glass. They weren't plastic.
Right. And you know what? You're absolutely right. Now that I put on my specs and I can see for myself, yes, that is a bottle, a glass model of the Gatorade.
Yeah, that stuff
Wow.
kept us going.
Right on. And we've got Rob in the picture too, who like some of us was a lot hairier back then, just saying.
Yeah. Look at that.
That is an artifact, kids. One artifact. So then we fast forward a little bit to, and again, this is not to muddy the waters, but to clarify, still in the first pressing, but the X's got darker. And, and also by default, the Schism logo got darker on the back. They're pretty light on those first 100. But yep, dark everything, still white labels. Still white, still Gatorade, still hairy. And you asked about how many were pressed, and I, of course, always heard it was 1,000. But one thing I've learned in researching this stuff, and especially now with the internet, a lot of those numbers quoted were wildly inaccurate. Sometimes to the plus side, sometimes to the minus side. If anybody's ever looked at Kev Finn's Revelation discography, where he actually went to Revelation and looked at all the invoices and all the pressing plant manifests and actually tallied them up, the numbers quite often had nothing to do with the mythology. So I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring and say that if Schism was run anything like the way Revelation was run, who knows? Who the hell knows how many were pressed?
Yeah.
We do know that you guys went through a first pressing and there was a second pressing, which we can see on the surface of it. Looks about the same as the first. You get your dark blue X, get your dark blue Skiz, but the labels.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We got the red labels and we got the extremely sunburnt looking.
Oh, that's cool. Hey, since the whole internet world, hardcore world is watching here, the deal that I remembered was that we were to get, for every pressing, if there was like 1,000 or whatever, and we know we got, 25 of the first one, per band member, 100 for the band. We were supposed to, with every subsequent pressing, we were supposed to get, another 100, which that dried up after pressing number 1. That's why I'm asking for the one with the Sammy on the back, because I never got shit. So
Right.
Perselli, I know you're out there. What happened, man? Why did you just stop sending those records to the band?
To be fair, Scott, I don't think you and I ever knew what the deal was.
No, I know. Yeah. I know I've talked to John about it. Like, I don't think anybody got shit after that first pressing, man. I mean, but I do remember that though. I remember getting 25 records and me and my buddy sitting in his bedroom, I was probably like 16 years old at the time, and just folding them and putting them in and folding them, putting them in, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this is awesome, man. This is awesome. Here, you could have one for your efforts for helping me, So it was, I do remember getting them the first pressing though. I've got about 5 left, maybe out of 25.
Wow, that's a pretty good save rate.
Yeah, not bad. And a matter of fact, I'll name drop here my good buddy Jack LaBarca, up in Southbury there. His dog chewed up his record sleeve on the Wide Awake thing. He has a little bulldog, and I actually had an extra insert for some reason. So there, all's well that ends well.
Right on. And a big shout out to Jack if you're watching. Jack was a regular customer at Trash American Style and helped keep us in business for probably a couple of weeks single-handedly just by the sheer dint of the number of records he bought, and a really good guy too. So
He's got
Yeah.
like a
What's up,
yeah,
Jack?
he's got a room, man. He's got like a record room, you know.
is he still
And,
good? Good.
Yeah, he's a drummer too, man. I play guitar. We get together and just jam now and again. It's great, man.
Wow, nice, nice. Always a pleasure to hear guys and gals who still have their collections and are still into the music. Salute to everybody out there. And that, of course, gets to the sticky, thorny issue of indeed the one record that Scott does not have, and that is the famous and or infamous Sammy pressing of the Wide Awake 7-inch. And I know the story, but who would like to explain why is that called the Sammy pressing?
Yeah.
I
don't
have no
know.
idea.
Oh, well, I guess I gotta tell you.
I was gonna say that's totally Schism running with the football, man. Like they art directed that one and did it. And I thought it was cool as hell, but I don't think we had any input, right, Rob? I mean, it's not us, it's Sammy Sigler on the picture there.
Exactly. One would think that was Scott on the drums, with the Wide Awake shirt, but no, it's actually Sammy, who's been in every band there's ever been to be in the New York hardcore scene, and record producer and drummer and all that. So yes, that's him. And then we've got the back.
Oh yeah, and that's the wall at the Anthrax. Because I remember Sammy and those guys drawing all that stuff. If you look close, you can see like it says Project X and some other stuff.
Yeah, I guess it certainly does name check people from that orbit. And as you said, completely a Schiz art project, art department product.
Yeah.
So now that kind of begs the question, because this one's got the red labels as well, just like the second pressing, but it was always my understanding that this was a completely different pressing of the record.
What does that mean, Malcolm?
What's that?
Meaning, what does that mean, a completely different pressing?
Meaning that when they ran out of, they pressed 1,000 of these or whatever and repressed, like it was actually a discrete pressing. But the fact that it's got red labels kind of makes me think they might have had leftover second pressing vinyl, but no covers.
Interesting.
Right, okay. And so was there only one run of this third pressing, and was it 1,000, or do we know anything about that?
That's the mystery. We don't know. And that's another case of the internet research team maybe being able to get on the ball and let us know exactly what the provenance of this thing is, because it's not clear. These guys never got one, but there it is.
We'd love to know, man. I mean, as far in my mind, it was like there's 3,000 Wide Awake records made. First pressing, second pressing, third pressing. I could be totally wrong. Who knows?
Yeah, because, I always made notes when I would get the records in, and I have to jigger this so you can actually see it. I always took great pains to write on the sleeve what the provenance was when I got it. And that's my original handwriting from a trash paint pen from 1989 or whatever. And I wrote on it second press.
Oh, wow.
So we already knew that the second pressing was this one with this sleeve and the red labels.
The red labels.
So maybe I should just trust my original notes from way back when, and it is the second pressing, just with a different sleeve.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. And that gets to another artifact that I am very, very, very proud of and very happy of, that I own 2 of these things. The story is that Schism for a while was doing distribution through Venus Records in New York City. They used to be on West 8th Street, then they moved to St. Mark's Place, East 8th. Great record store. They did wholesale distribution. And one day I got a phone call from my sales rep over there saying, hey, we've got the last copies of this Wide Awake record that Schism put out. Do you want them? I said, of course I do. How many have you got? I think they had 100. I said, I'll take them all. Give me those 100. So I got them, and they were all these. Started selling them and got down to the bottom of the box. And the first one that caught my eye was this one right here, which had a very interesting handmade sleeve.
Look at that.
Wow.
Kind of based on the Sammy sleeve, but not totally. It's actually a folded and taped print ad.
Yeah. God, that's weird.
Yep, and they
It looks like it's a newspaper, but yeah, now it's making sense. Yeah.
yeah, total newsprint. I don't know. It must have been Schism. I don't know. I don't know what zine this is. It's got a Revelation ad on the back, as you can see.
Yeah.
And it's taped together, and it's got the regulation lyric sheet. Oh, and I just answered the question. Hold on a second. It's got an honest to God printed photo with some kind of it's got some kind of what's written on it. It says schisms out of business is what Purcell's voice bubble is saying.
Oh God, that's so fun.
And on the back, we've got a little copyright notice for BJ Pappas, who is also a photographer. His stuff's been seen BJ was a guy, right?
I think it's a girl, isn't it?
That's why I'm asking. You never know. BJ, are you a dude or are you a chick? What are you? Who can tell us? But that's your copyright on the back.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure BJ. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, BJ. Sorry, I misgendered you. It was completely unintentional. It's
such a probably totally wrong. We can always edit this out later.
Yeah. Such a testosterone-soaked scene, you know. Yeah. But I just answered the question about the 3 pressings, and that's why I made a point of noting that it's a second pressing on this and a second pressing with a different sleeve, because yes, there was a third pressing, and the third pressing had gray labels.
Wow.
Don't know if the camera can pick it up, but it's distinctly a shade of gray as opposed to white.
Yeah.
So you were right, Scott. 3 distinct pressings. Yeah. And just to put that one over the top, we have the handwritten notes.
Oh, yes.
Can somebody read that? I don't have the ability to read this on the screen. Who wants to read that?
I'll read it. You have received the last Wide Awake EP ever to be pressed. Now, yeah, it's about to turn it a little bit. We ran out of covers, so we had to hand make the last 5. Flip. Skiz going out of business sale. That's awesome.
That's it. So this is the very last one, the last Wide Awake record ever.
Yeah.
Wow.
In the bottom of a box that I got from Venus Distribution. And that's really cool. But the one that I like particularly was one that was, I think, under it. And at first I was like, oh, okay, it's just, it's the Wide Awake, regular old Sammy cover. But I just kind of gave away this is the actual paste up.
Paste up, yeah.
The very paste up that they used to photocopy the sleeves with. And you can see, maybe you can, maybe you can't, but they actually tore out a printed Wide Awake label and glued it on and glued the photos together to make the sleeve. Yeah. The actual
art. We know some guys from our graduating class have gone on to work for shooting TV commercials, movies, and films. I'd like to think that whoever worked on some of this stuff made a career out of it, had some success.
Well, maybe we can find out, because I never even looked at this before, but I never even looked at the inside. So this is a first. This is a real reveal. Yeah. I never even noticed, but there's the credit right there.
Yeah.
This is
Alex Brown.
Alex Brown, aka Pun Killman. Alex Brown, where are you?
Pun Killman.
Wow.
Oh, he's passed away.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's no longer with us. Yes.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow. That's mildly bumming. I hate hearing stuff like that.
Yeah. It was, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow. Well, I'm glad the artifacts exist anyway.
Yeah. I just generally speaking, say, all these cool 7-inch layouts and stuff that people did. I'd like to think, some of these people went on to do, get paid for this sort of thing. But I forgot that, Alex was the guy that did that one. Yeah.
I have no doubt that any number of alumni went on to careers in all kinds of stuff, like movie directing, script writing, screenplays,
Yeah.
graphic design,
Yeah.
fine art. And if any, people who are watching right now, if you guys are part of the scene, I would love for people to chime in the comments section and tell us where you are. Tell us what you're doing
Yeah.
right now, what you're up to. I want to know personally.
Yeah.
I'm really keen on this stuff. I love just the fact that so many people who walk through the doors of Trash American Style and who were involved in the scene went on to do great things. And greatness is defined however you want to define it. If you're happily married with 3 kids, tell us. We want to know. We want to know where you're at right now and what paths your life has taken, because it's cool. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Agreed. Yes.
Yes, but let's hoist a toast. Scott's got his brew. I got my gallon of water. Let's
Yeah.
take a
Oh,
toast.
that always the bottle of water. We can count on that. Yeah. Good for you.
That's right, baby. That's the real true till death right here, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Now, also in terms of artifacts, this is a very interesting one. Rob and I were talking about this one a little bit before we went on live. You guys, we talked about the demo, the Wide Awake demo, and there is one very nefarious artifact, and that is the unauthorized 7-inch of the demo.
Yeah.
Yeah, who made that?
Yes.
All right.
Where did that come from?
Now, this is funny because the guy who pressed this, usually your average bootlegger goes through a lot of trouble to cover their tracks. But this guy, I remember I got them directly from him. And the original Trash American Style date code, you can see that's Bruce Wingate's handwriting. We sold them for $3.50 each. This came out in 1995 in August. And the abbreviation was CONT, C-O-N-T. And on top of that, I think this guy put a flyer for his distro in there, which lists the Wide Awake bootleg 7-inch as being one of his products. So
This
let's see.
son of a bitch.
Let's take a look here. No. Oh, wait, does it? He, created this pretty nifty lyric sheet.
Oh.
His own version's got all the information from the original demo.
Yeah. Just gave it a more 90s collegiate font treatment, fair enough.
Yep.
Yeah, not bad.
It's also got a little errata sheet about how the tracks are in the wrong order. And unfortunately, my copy does not have the dude's distro list on it. And I'm trying to remember the name of the guy's label. He put out a few straight edge records. And Contrast. It actually says on the Matrix, Contrast.
C-O-N-T, yeah.
So once again, the internet research team, if y'all want to go on and look up Contrast Records, who did some other straight edge 7-inchers, they did it.
Yeah. I always loved reading the Matrix, like when people put like little weird sayings and stuff in them.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. That is one of the many, many, many fun benefits of collecting vinyl. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Can't do that on a download, kids.
Yeah.
So before we get on to the next release, there was you just mentioned earlier, Scott, about how you actually played very few shows with the band.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I found some of the shows. I was saying, Rob, I don't know if you heard it or not, looked like you got up to go to the bathroom or something. I kid. I found the Anthrax book, and I was saying, like, we really didn't play that many shows in the grand scheme of things. The band wasn't around for that long. But like, just looking like the first show I played with Wide Awake, this was 87, Token Entry, Aware, Wide Awake, and On Edge. August 20. I won't go through them all, but just some of the bands we played with. Youth of Today, Warzone, Wide Awake, Side by Side on the 28th. Then looks like like big gap in time here, unless they missed one or I didn't highlight it. We go into 1988, January 2nd, Super Touch, Wide Awake, Upfront, and Touchdown. But I
was at that one. I was at a few of those. I remember that one clearly.
Yeah. in 1988, we also played with on May 13th, Bold, Wide Awake, Head On, and Uppercut. And again, I always liked Uppercut. Those guys were cool. This was the epic. This was my last show and the one to go out on. Friday, August 26th. Actually, no, maybe this was my last show. Verbal Assault, Wide Awake, Zombie Squad, and Uppercut. Like, the fact that we played with Verbal Assault, I mean, come on now, I can just call it a day. Just die.
I mean, that was it.
That's it.
And indeed it was. So what was it that led to your departure from the band?
The problem was my dad. He was really busting my balls and being a typical suburban Connecticut father. These guys were a little bit older than me, but not that much. But he just didn't like the idea of us, getting in a van and driving to play a show in Ohio or Albany or wherever. And it just didn't jibe with his, the way he wanted me to be a kid in Brookfield, Connecticut. So it was creating too much turmoil, with shows having to get canceled or, blah, 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 blah. And I think finally Tom just came up to me it was like at Brookfield High, and he just said, "Hey man, we're gonna cut you loose and get a new drummer." And I was like, what, because we had just played a great show. We had just played a really good show with like Instead and Super Touch. So it kind of took me by surprise because I thought things were kind of moving in the right direction with my parents, but I guess it was too little too late, and he decided to sub me out for a guy named Josh.
So
maybe
Scott,
yeah.
From what I remember, I wasn't part of that decision either. Again,
Yeah.
being in the rhythm section, we kind of are just told what to do. But I do remember you kind of hit the nail on the head where it was just this, we were like 18 years old and kind of had a little more, I have older brothers, right? And I was able to do more stuff, and you were like 16, and it was like, yeah, my parents would have been fine with me driving to Ohio and staying at somebody's house they don't know, but at 16 they may not have. And that's kind of like where you were at just that spot. It just made it hard for you because John and Tom were pushing so hard. It just, the world was opening up for these opportunities for us, and they were exciting. At the same time, there's a little bit of the unknown and faith in the process that we had that our parents may not have shared. But at 18, you probably got a little more wiggle room to do some of that stuff, where at 16, it doesn't fly. So I think that's what got caught up. And I don't recall being in any part of those conversations, just being told that, oh, we're going to go jam with this other drummer now. I was like, okay. And I was leaving for Vermont too. So it's the same thing. It was like, I wasn't around as much. So.
Yeah, it's a shame because, in the grand scheme of things, if we were doing these tours, all right, maybe we got in a car accident or something like that happened or whatever, horrible. But the bigger picture, what we were doing was good. You know what I mean? We were like staying out of trouble. We were straight edge, and I don't think my parents could wrap their head around that. They didn't know exactly what we were, what the big picture was. It was just like, oh, these kids are traveling around, goofing around, and they're going to get in trouble. Yeah. So that's a shame.
Yeah. And that's a very important point, because the concept of straight edge was not in the mainstream at all, So your parents probably could, think rock and roll band, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and debauchery and heroin overdoses and all that. I would bet you money that they really literally didn't get it.
Yeah. The notion of like how could they? I mean, it was all like new and crazy and everything at that time. Like, why would they? They were suburban parents. Why would they understand it? I get their point. Yeah.
So
I got a pass because my brother's being so much older. In fact, my older brother Chris, we lived in New Jersey when I was really little. He was going to New York in the 70s and seeing the Ramones and the Runaways, and he's kind of the one that introduced me to kind of punk rock. And he and my other brother, they were kind of always in trouble with my parents, always. And so when I got to that age and we were straight edge and just kind of going out and skateboarding and making music, my parents thought this was the easiest thing in the world. It was like, fine, do whatever you want. Like they had some context of like how this balanced out. They're like, well, he's not causing any trouble, knock yourself out. And until I give him a reason, they just kind of were happy to let me do this stuff based on my brother's behavior 10 years before. So I lucked out in that regard, but I also lucked out because my brother Chris is the one who got me into this. Like he took me, I remember, listening to Ramones records in his room when I was like 10, right? And just, he's the one who just got me into the whole scene. But yeah, so I had an easier path with my parents for sure.
Speaking of paths, I always look at it like conversely, like a snow plow. I feel like I had to plow the path, and my little sister just walked right on through because she got zero pushback from my parents on anything. Oh well, it's such as.
Well, it was a very noble and honorable big brotherly thing for you to do, whether you wanted to or not. It was very, very.
But Michelle was fun, man. She used to come. My little sister used to come to hardcore shows and stuff too, like all through the Anthrax and the Moon and the Tune-In and all that stuff. So she was there too. She's probably got some great stories for you.
She probably has great stories. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because that's when you start talking about the Moon and the Tune-In, that's like a little bit. That's almost an entirely new generation, really. It's only a matter of a few years, but it's kind of a whole new thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, we already know that. I think, to use if I recall correctly, the term farmed out to some guy named Josh, we would have to bat the ball over to Rob, who can tell us who this guy Josh was and what his story was and what that era of the band was all about.
So here's my memory is Josh Miller. He was a super nice guy, and he lived in Milford, Connecticut. Somehow John had found him. Again, this is pre-internet, so I don't know how we did this. And they had met and come to some arrangements. And so we went to, I remember the first time we practiced at Josh's house in Milford. Had to bring my bass rig over, and John brought his amp over. And it seemed to go pretty well, right? He was just kind of probably a year or two older than Scott, and kind of learned the songs fast enough, and was able to travel, right? So I think that was the biggest thing for John and Tom that Scott alluded to, is like, I know as soon as Josh joined the band, we played up in Albany, right? I think that was that show, if I'm getting it right, in Albany. And like the plan was to just start traveling, right? Hitting all the places we never went, Providence, Boston, and so on. Unfortunately, that we didn't do most of that. It just never really happened to the scale that I think John and Tom wanted. But I do remember we played Albany. We played the Anthrax a few more times. And it seemed to be okay. We practiced basically because Josh has had a big setup in his room at his house, and we practiced there, and everything was fine. But again, this was at the same time I was starting college, and I was living in Vermont, and so I was not around as much. And it would be something like a phone call, hey, we've got a show this weekend, come home. I would drive down to Yukon, play the show there, or to the Anthrax and play a show there. But it started to get, again, this is before cell phones, the communication was harder, right? It was either a real phone or a letter. And it just kind of started to unravel or become looser, right? And at the same time, Tom was thinking about what he wanted to do, and John was thinking about maybe moving to the city, and it just felt like it slowly became something that wasn't top of the priority list for everybody, because everyone's trying to figure out what to do. That's how I felt in the moment. So I don't remember a specific time or moment where it was, acknowledged that we're not doing this anymore. It was just a fizzling out, a slow fizzling out is what I remember. And John and Tom may have a different memory of it, and I don't know if you do, Scott, but that's what I remember. It was just kind of came to a halt.
Do you, just to double back, do you have any memories about the Aaron Straw benefit show? Because that was an epic day, whatever.
I remember that show being crazy, just so many people, and just like a really good turnout, really good, energy for Aaron's benefit. And I remember just talking with all the different bands. I thought we played well that night. There's a recording of it somewhere. Yeah, so that's all I remember, is just thinking it was a positive day, but I don't have like a lot of specific, like, oh, I was sitting in the room talking to so-and-so. It was a blur. It was just a big blur, but it was a busy, fun day. And yeah, I just remember I thought we had a good set. That was all I remember.
Well, if I could chime in, because I was at that show as a spectator, and the first thing I remember was that it was the most people I'd ever seen at the Anthrax.
Right, yeah. It was busy.
It was great. I remember standing on the front steps of the Anthrax, like the front steps, a little bit of landing in the front door, and just looking out the parking lot, and it was just a sea of cars and a sea of people. It was insane. And the sheer number of people that were jammed into the club, that I think it was a Sunday afternoon, it was claustrophobic, It was wild. And it was a real kind of duality, being out there in the audience for that, because on the one hand, you had all the bands who were there for Aaron's family and for him, and were raising money for his family. And it was all the right bands, like all the right bands, on the one hand. But on the other hand, that's when some of the element of brainless idiocy, from, mostly from other outside scenes, started to creep in a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Was that like in the crowd you're talking about?
Oh, dude, there was a guy. Isn't that what the end 7-inch is that show, Malcolm?
Well, let's talk about it. That is indeed what the record in question is. Wide Awake, The End, which was recorded at the aforementioned Aaron Straw benefit show.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, look at that guy in the back.
Yeah, that's
look at all that hair. Oh my God.
Look at that. It's impressive.
Yeah, here, let's actually, and this was released on Mondo Glippy label, which was Craig Colaruso's label.
What a name for a record company.
Well, it was Mike Gillespie and Craig Colaruso, I believe, together.
Oh, he was. Oh, I didn't realize that Craig was Mondo.
Yeah, and Mike is Gillespie.
I never knew. Obviously I know Gillespie, but I never knew that that was a combination of the two. Oh, that's hilarious, man.
Yeah.
Yep, an offspring of Mondo Psychotic / m.u.d.d. Industries. And if anybody wants to hear more about Mondo Psychotic and m.u.d.d. Industries, go to my YouTube channel, because Craig Colaruso and I did an epic 3-parter on his involvement in the Connecticut straight edge hardcore scene and then beyond. So he's the guy who put this out. Another one of those dudes, just one of the best people you could ever hope to meet, man. Solid dude.
Yeah.
So,
hello, Craig.
Totally.
Long time no see.
Totally. So that's only one pressing on this, I'm pretty sure. There are no real variants until the one I'm going to talk about at the end of the show. Got the front, got the back. Here we have the insert, which has some cool photos. And then
we got Jeff Coleman jumping up with the camera in hand.
Yes, Jeff Coleman. If anybody was ever at the Anthrax once, you saw Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff is still out there, Jeff. Let's go.
And you were friends with Jeff, right?
Yeah.
After just one visit.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
There's no way you couldn't end up being best pals with the guy after one visit, So yes,
he was a very difficult guy to get along with. He was very, very grumpy all the time.
Boy, better run a fact check on that one, Zuckerberg. So yes, that was where the Wide Awake, the end 7-inch was recorded. So yes,
I had forgotten that was from the Aaron Straw show.
yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah. One of the many soundboard cassette recordings made at the Anthrax, probably with Bill Knapp on the board, I would guess.
Yeah.
And it was in circulation. What I remember was that somebody wanted to bootleg the recording of that. And the plan that I heard was that, for a while, John McLaughlin, guitar player for Wide Awake, was pursuing acting and he was doing some modeling. And one of the hot topics, no pun intended, at one of the clothing stores in the mall was that one of the display pictures in this clothing store featured John McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Posing hard in a jacket and a tie, like doing the modeling thing. So
Just
Yeah.
kidding.
yeah,
Chess King.
Chess King. Okay, cool. So somebody was going to take a picture of that and use it for the front cover.
Yes.
And, it's going to be super cheesy. So Mondo Glippi, in cooperation with John McLaughlin and I guess everybody else, decided to preempt the bootleg and do their own official version of the record.
That's hilarious.
Yes. And that brings us right back to you, Scott, and your reminiscences of the benefit show.
Oh yeah, I just remember we're talking about like some guys came up from New York City. I don't want to name names or anything, get myself in trouble, but people were like swinging a chain around and during we had a great scene at the Anthrax, for crying out loud. I mean, for the most part, there was a lot of moshing. It was a little rough and tumble, but occasionally we might take Mike Roach to the Norwalk Hospital because he broke his nose. But I mean, when people are bringing chains into the pit, I mean, that's what I call bullshit. I mean,
I don't remember that at all. You were there.
That man, yeah.
Wow.
And Tom got really pissed about it, but rightly so. He's like, we're here to do a benefit for Aaron. And this is not an excuse to freaking pull out a chain and start whipping it around the mosh pit and hitting people. So, yeah, I don't know, man.
I've always thought that was kind of poignant because that really, in a lot of ways, it was not only, released in 1991 as an epitaph for Wide Awake, but I thought it was kind of emblematic of the beginning of the end for the Anthrax, because that
100%.
sort of stupidity just got worse as time went on.
Yeah. And I always think, not to just to go on a real quick tangent here, it had run its course, I mean, we had just, we're guilty of it, but we just saturated the shit out of the market with straight edge posi core or whatever, and I mean, it was enough was enough. I think we were all bored silly of it. And that's why, like, to this day, one of my favorite bands is Quicksand, because they decided to just do a totally different spin on things. Into other is fun as well. But
my take's a little different. I never felt bored with it, right? I feel like also the way the songs we were writing started to change, right? If you listen to the end, it's a lot more progressive than the 7-inch songs, right? And I felt like some of the songs that we were writing that we didn't even record kind of just started to get progressively more interesting, musically. And I thought that was a good direction. That was the evolution of our songwriting, or John's playing as a musician. And so that's kind of what I felt. And I felt like we never got the fair shake to work it out.
Yeah. Rob, but I think you're kind of agreeing with me. It's like things were changing, things were evolving. Like if you look at that pressure release 7-inch that came out at late 80s there, like it wasn't hardcore anymore. Like it was like, they wrote a 5-minute song, it was crazy.
Right. But it was just still kind of our thing. I never lost the sense that it was us doing this. Like it was like still this do-it-yourself kind of vibe, but it was like evolving for sure, which kept it interesting for me. Right. It just was super interesting to kind of, it was like harder and harder to learn these songs, how to play them. Right. It just got harder. And it was that kind of interest.
Tough. I mean, like when I came back and jammed with you guys 97 or 98, whatever it was, like it's not like a straight through song. Like it's got a lot of weird stops and starts, and the you play this part for X amount of bars, and then, so it was definitely getting more complex for sure. Yeah.
And then don't forget, I'm living in Vermont now, so I'm completely removed from anything that is, this type of music. So like, I kind of was like, still listening to hardcore and just kind of connected to it and kind of thirsty for it. So I really enjoyed kind of those last songs we were able to write. I was like, this is interesting. It's really cool. And then, like I said, it kind of fizzled out, our momentum anyway.
Which is really weird because, and I've made this observation before when talking to other people, it seems like all the bands that lasted past 1989 moved in a similar direction, like Youth of Today, Disengage, the last Bold 7-inch. They were really breaking new musical ground. And then, of course, they broke up immediately afterwards. It was all like a syndrome. I always wonder what would have happened if those bands had been able to crank out a full-length album of music that sounded like that,
Right.
Yeah. And I think there was a part of it was that none of us thought, we could go beyond a do-it-yourself thing, right? There was no blueprint for getting to the next level, right? So there was like, I think that played into people being able to move on and just do something else, because there's no thought that you're going to actually put out this really groundbreaking 12-inch record, or you're going to break through the next level. Like not a lot of people, I'm sure some people did, but a lot of people just didn't have the ability to see it going further, or just never considered it.
Yeah, I mean, at that age, really, there really aren't a lot of careerists out there at that age, so you're not going to go that way. So what led to you, okay, big, long gap. What was the impetus for you guys getting back together in 1998 or 7 or whatever it was?
I kind of remember this. I don't know if you remember the same way, Scott, was that I had moved back to Brookfield. And I had started at a cool skateboard shop, and, playing punk rock music in the speakers in the store. I had a skate park, and just kind of really connecting back to that scene of being in Connecticut, a lot of people coming by, old friends, talking with John, who was, I believe, in Florida at the time. And Scott, you were still in Connecticut, right?
No, I was living in Colorado from 95 to 98. So it coincided with me coming back.
Yeah.
Spring of
So
98.
there was just this sense of like, we're kind of all connecting again, right? Everyone had cell phones now. The internet was coming out. People were, we were able to connect more freely, and we had time to do it. And somehow, I don't know who brought the idea up, but it was like, let's do these shows. Let's do these round of shows. And obviously Scott and I are always in for whatever. And it just seemed to be someone put it in place, and we booked those 4 shows.
Yeah, we practiced. Now that we practiced the hell out of. I remember vividly, we had legit practice sessions. John had a whole slew of new songs. We learned new songs and everything. Yeah, and it was pretty polished. We played Coney Island High, the Tune In.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. That was great.
Yeah, it was fun. It was that was a really fun time. Yeah.
Yeah, both shows with Underdog, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
Yeah. It was great.
Yeah, that Tune In show was off the chain. It was almost the equivalent of the Aaron Straw benefit. Packed house, 2 fantastic bands.
So fun.
And expertly filmed by one Malcolm Tent. I have the VHS tape still.
Just doing my job, gentlemen. Yeah, that to me was a dream, because I was able to set up my tripod video recorder and run soundboard audio. So I got killer audio, great video, fun night. The music was good. The people were good. That was just a wonderful, wonderful night.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
The bombshell.
It all went south.
I don't know if you know more than I do, Scott. I don't know. I just know Tom decided he was done. He didn't want to do the last two shows that we had already committed to doing, which was the New Milford Teen Center and this show in Jersey with Vision, which I was super excited about, and Underdog.
Well, it's probably because those shows at Coney Island and the Tune-In were just met with such, lackluster and no interest from the fans. I mean, wasn't very well attended. So I can see why Tom didn't want to do it.
I don't know. And I know John tried hard to be like, all right, well, let's just finish these two out and then we'll figure it out. And for some reason, there was just like, nope. And I don't even think I talked to Tom. I think John just really talked with them. And it was kind of a scramble time. And luckily our friend Craig helped, jumped in and just helped us out so much. So like eternally grateful for Craig, and, he did awesome. And, those shows were fun too. It was fun playing with Craig, and we were able to do those shows. But weird time, really weird time. And also kind of a time where it was like, all of a sudden, like, what's happening with Tom? And he didn't really communicate with Scott or I very much. So that was
it's
it.
tough. I mean, I love playing music, just, hey, you want to go jump on stage and play some songs? I'm going to say yes. And so I just can't put myself in his headspace and why he didn't want to do it.
Yeah, we were doing fine. Everything was going well. It wasn't like things were horrible. So,
who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, it's an imponderable, because usually it's the drummer is the damn problem, but in this case,
really,
oh yeah,
that's why I switched to guitar now. I don't want to be the problem.
So that was really strange. It started the process of that, kind of the disconnect. That's where we are today. Tom is really not connected with us. He's kind of drifted away. He does his own thing. And
if I texted John or hit him, he would reply back with within a few hours or whatever. And likewise with Rob, but I have not talked to Tom Kennedy since 1998. Yeah, just disappeared.
Something happened. He just wanted to turn the page on, for himself, and so as a result, while Scott and I wanted, we would be interested in doing something. John really wants to. He's not that interested without Tom. So that leaves us to where we are today, where, there's, opportunities to do something either creatively or re-release stuff or something. And it just kind of has us at a standstill where it's probably not going to happen. And that was it in 98.
Wow, crazy. And it is a shame because just to give a little bit of background, the singer for those last two shows was Craig Mack, the lead singer of Follow Through, who was a great.
He's awesome. We love Craig, and again, can't thank him enough for stepping in, and he did an awesome job.
Yeah, that was a real case of the torch sort of being passed on, because Follow Through, class of 95, mega.
Follow Through is awesome. I mean, they have just so much energy when they played, and it was just really, really special for him to kind of jump in and help us out.
Yeah, and the show, I was at the New Milford Teen Center show, and you guys nailed it, man. Wide Awake killed it that night. And, really good crowd there, lots of enthusiasm, high energy. It was
so
really
from Scott and I's perspective, we kind of felt the same thing. We're like, all right, well, let's just do this, right? And but John didn't feel the same way, and he wanted to kind of just pump the brakes, and that's just where it kind of ended. But
right. Which does sort of inadvertently and indirectly lead us to a very interesting artifact that you've got, Rob. If you'd like to show us this interesting boxed set you have.
I was sharing with you earlier. So our friend Joe Snow, must have been 98 or just after, gave me this handmade box set for my birthday. I don't even know how he made it. There's 3 CDs in here. And what's interesting, it seems to be like every recording we ever did. I don't know how Joe got it. I don't know how he has access to it. In 98, this is pre-internet, pre-anything. And so what he does have is what we didn't talk about, Scott, is in 98, we kind of recorded another demo with some new songs, right?
That's true.
So on this thing, I don't know if you can read it here. It says Demo 98. If you can read the names of the songs, and the Hate. Then we have a song called Myths, Then we have another version of Myths.
Oh,
Then we have
Back on the Farm.
Back on the Farm. And I think some of those songs had some great, again, they followed that path of being progressive musically, some great riffs. They were kind of interesting melodies.
Yeah.
I think the songwriting was just progressing. And Tom does the lyrics on these demos, by the way. So I'm glad I have that. And, because, I don't know where they exist anywhere else other than this. I've never seen them digitally on the internet. I've never seen them anywhere. So I'm grateful for Joe to give me that.
Yeah, I'll just chime in. I'll chime in a little bit as, rabid tape trader and tape collector. I have some of that stuff, but on cassette.
Okay.
And I don't, for the life of me, remember who gave me the cassette or where it came from. But I guess the stuff was circulated a little bit at the time for whatever reason. But I guess when you guys stopped doing, the band, that was it. There's no reason to circulate it anymore. So it never got out.
Yeah. So we had a bunch of new songs that were never released, never saw the light of day, and no one ever heard. Because I don't even think we played them. We might have played Redemption at those 4 shows, right? I know. I think I don't remember playing Redemption in New Jersey for sure. If not New Milford and New Haven, and so Redemption kind of made the stage, and it was like a kind of a rocking, cool, awesome song. But I don't know if we played like Myths and all that other stuff. We may have.
Yeah, well, John was a huge Dag Nasty Brian Baker fan, and I am too. And I think they had like a little bit of that Dag Nasty feel to them, a little bit more like coming out of like post-hardcore type stuff. Yeah, it was good. They were good songs. Myths, I literally forgot about that song Myths until you showed me that thing. That was a damn good song.
Yeah, so they were fun to play, and it's a shame, but I'm lucky I have this, and I'm grateful to Joe. Thank you, Joe.
Joe Snow, another one of the good guys. Salute to Joe. Yeah. And also just to satisfy my rabid curiosity, what's on the other 2 CDs in that box?
Oh, of course. I'm sorry. So, well, I'll go back through this. We have, on this first one, we have Don Fury Outtakes, Demo 98, another version of Demo 98. First demo in 80, I'm sorry, Demo 86, first Demo 86, then the show from the Italian American Club.
Yeah. No stone left unturned.
This one, I can't read backwards, but I'll read it. Anthrax on January 2nd, 1988. Anthrax, August 26, 1988. Images, Brewster, New York, 1987. That may have been my first show. This one has Anthrax, August 15th, 1987. The Save Your Ass compilation, TPOS. Remember that one, Malcolm?
Yeah, very classy. Yes, TPOS number 24, baby. Still in print, by the way.
And then he put on, get this, John's other band, Vinyl, on the bottom. Christine, Wild and Young, and Worlds Apart. 3 songs from John's band, Vinyl, in Los Angeles.
Wait, hold on. I got to correct you. That's actually, those are pre-vinyl demos.
Are they? Okay, so right. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So,
John, I remember he had a great little EP or whatever it was called, Cash Machine. And I said, why'd you call it that? He's like, oh, because I kept having to go down to the ATM and get more money for the studio or whatever. But oh my God, I love all his solo stuff is so rad. Like when he was out in LA and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to John is such a great songwriter. And I still I tell him that every time I see him, like he's just so good. When he would write a song, like he hears the whole song, the riff, the melody, the drums, the lyrics, he hears it all in his head and he can communicate it to Scott or me or Tom, what he wants to hear, and then get this thing. So it's just this crazy talent he has. And, it started to kind of really develop as we wrote these songs, as he wrote these songs further on. And I just wish we got to record more of them and see where we could take it.
Yeah, I think that's one of my biggest life's regret. Some of it's out of my hands, but that there should have been a wide awake 12-inch. We maybe in the moment we should have busted our ass a little bit more, like around 87, 88, to write more songs, practice more. because we never knew where this was going to go. I don't think we had any idea of the scope of this, that we'd be sitting here talking about this in 2021. I probably said it last time, but yeah.
Yeah.
So you look back, in retrospect, you just look back at the things you do in life, and maybe you would have done some things differently. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Missed opportunities, they say, right?
Missed opportunities and just a life full of regret. Oh my God.
Well, never stop music though, so I always just try to have fun and all that good stuff.
Exactly. Maybe you guys want to tell the people a little bit about what you've been doing since then, what kind of musical projects you've got going on, or anything else you want to get off your chest. We'll start with Rob, just because.
Yeah, go Rob.
Well, actually, I talk with Scott a lot because we have very similar musical tastes, and we try to get together and actually play when we can. It's not that often. We did it, when you lived in Norwalk, Scott, and we tried to play in Guilford for a little bit, and so I definitely still connect with Scott musically, and whether he's drumming or playing guitar. So, but basically, no, I've been a suburban dad and just raising two girls, and I have my little cave with guitars, and I make noise when no one's home. And now I ended up I moved to Boston, and now I talk to people on the computer because there's no one that I really know that's here.
Got to get out there and meet some.
No, I do have my guitars here, and but I live in an apartment now, so I can't plug in. So everything's unplugged.
Oh man, the horror.
Yeah.
What about you, Scott? What you up to? Tell the people about it.
Yeah, so after Wide Awake, over a course of many, many years, I got into video production. I work for I won't say their name, but I work for a fashion and beauty company here in Connecticut and shoot their videos and edit them and all that. It's a good job. Married with two kids. My kids are 10 and 12. And we just moved back to Brookfield, actually. All roads lead back to Brookfield. So, which is, I really like it. We're out in the middle of it's all fields and stuff around here. It's very quiet. It's very relaxing. So I can definitely twirl the knobs up on the amplifier and play the drums as loud as I want. I don't have to worry about neighbors with the broomstick. But Rob and I both like we still, of course, listen to all the hardcore stuff. I mean, I'm speaking for Rob, but I love hardcore. I like stoner rock. I'm a huge fan of shoegaze stuff like Slow Dive and My Bloody Valentine and all that sort of stuff. So man, it's good to still keep listening to music. I'm going to be 50 this year, so life goes on.
Man,
that is nuts. That is nuts to think of that.
Yeah, I'm so happy. Honest to God, I'm so happy to see see you, Malcolm, and all these crazy guys we hung out with. I talk to people on Facebook and Instagram all the time, and just happy to see people are still around. I mean, for example, I went to Dinosaur Jr. a couple months ago. Eamon, remember the king of the pit? Eamon was there, man. We saw the show together. So from Norwalk.
Cool.
But man, everyone's still around, and it's good to see people now and again.
Absolutely, man. This whole social media thing is good for something every now and again, which is very nice. And I've enjoyed this a lot, man, talking to you guys. It's, like the old cliche goes, no time has elapsed whatsoever, except we're all older and maybe a little bit smarter, maybe a little bit wiser, and still happy and healthy and having fun, and that's good.
Yeah, I totally enjoy your Tent Talks video, so I'm a fan, Malcolm.
Oh, thank you. I'll have to keep on doing them then, which is a great time for me to plug my regular Wednesday night show, Tent Talks Tunes, right here live on the Facebook and archived in perpetuity on the aforementioned YouTube channel. So do yourself a big fat favor and subscribe to Malcolm Tent on YouTube. And of course, check me out on the Facebook every Wednesday at 7 p.m. and really 24 hours a day at all other times, because you just should. And I'm going to mention one more time, because this is really, the ulterior motive department. This is a bit of an infomercial. We have the aforementioned Wide Awake The End 7-inch, special hand-lathed edition of only 30 copies. Once they're gone, they're gone. This is not like this thing at all. No, 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 no. This is legit. Scott, did you ever get your copy that I sent you?
Oh, I sadly it got lost. Yeah, and I know you did. You definitely sent it out. We talked about the tracking info, but yeah.
All right, whatever. I'll send you another one because everybody gets their royalties. I always do my best. And
I'll
Rob,
send you we'll chat online. I'll send you my updated address and all that. Yeah.
We'll figure it out. Rob, you got yours.
I did. Thank you. I love it.
And I know I sent John must have gotten his because I have not received any complaints from him as to why didn't I get my record. So that's good. So 30.
Tom.
What's that?
I'll take Tom's copy.
There you go. It nets out. He probably wouldn't want it anyway, the way he's going. Oh my God. But just to show you again, hand lays, everyone cut in real time, one at a time, by a genuine craftsman in Tennessee. They are in glorious lo-fi mono, and they actually don't really sound that different from the original pressed vinyl. They're maybe just a smidge, just a touch more on the lo-fi side, but they're pretty damn close. I think they sound just fine. So all the payment information and whatnot will be posted on the screen on a pinned comment. And of course, Discogs and or eBay, baby, is where you can find them. So I'm done selling, I'm done shilling, and I'm done talking in general. Once again, guys, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Oh, thanks, Malcolm. It's great.
And
Yeah, likewise, man. This was super fun, man. I can't wait to see these, and I'm going to go eat some Indian food now.
ooh, hey, you know what? I'm going to follow in your exact footsteps right now. So there you go.
Good luck to both of you.
So that's it, everybody. I'm signing out. Rob and Scott signing out also. Thanks for being here. And until we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.
So long.